I mean, some people from my background, they cannot speak their first language back in Asia. They speak English only.
Yes.
It's kind of, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying like they are not doing a bad job.
Look,
but
it's important to try and teach that, but if that can't be done, to try to keep still some sort of cultural thing.
yeah, like this act, yeah.
That can still all be done in English, and it can be taught in English, and it can be explained and everything. So sometimes you don't absolutely need the language to preserve
the skill, of drawing an egg.
And the love of being that. You know, there are so many Australian Ukrainians who don't speak Ukrainian anymore, but still very wholeheartedly identify as being Ukrainian as their background. So language is important, but it's not everything. I think it's the culture, it's the love of what you're doing and that preservation of what has come before, which is really important.
I mean, learning a language is wonderful, and try and teach them while they're very, very young, because they're little sponges and
that's the perfect age to teach them.
They'll pick up every language.
So like even for you to, as the second or third generation of Australian-Ukrainian or Ukrainian-Australian, like do you still speak Ukrainian, like to some extent?
I speak Ukrainian to my mother all the time. I must admit, we don't really speak Ukrainian at home, but we go to a lot of different things. My husband and I, and Teresa too, sometimes we sing in church choirs and some of the Ukrainian things. So we are using the language quite a lot with our singing and other things, and all of these events. We certainly understand everything, and if we go to Ukraine, they laugh at us sometimes because they say that our Ukrainian is not modern, that it's old Ukrainian, because it's the Ukrainian that our parents brought with them 60, 70 years
So the language itself has changed.
Well, you think about any language.
The language develops.
You think about any language in its native land, it progresses, it develops, it changes, it modernizes along the way. Now, my grandparents immigrated here almost 70 years ago. So when they came here, as did all of their peers, they came and they learned the language of the time. Now, it was essentially time capsuled in Australia. So they taught their children.
They taught it. Ukrainian schools are in that same
language of
their land.
But
Ukraine actually had progressed and developed. So when I went to Ukraine for the very first time, I was 19, and I went back, and I remember very clearly saying to a young woman at our sister school, from our Ukrainian school, and I said to her, "Перепрошую, де є клюзат?" which I was asking where the bathroom was. And she just looked at me very strangely, like, "What are you talking about?" Because she'd never heard this word before. And I just said in English, "Toilet, need the toilet." And she's like, "Oh, toilet, it's over
Toilet,
here."
okay.
Because it had progressed and westernized.
Don't
okay.
forget with the internet and other things,
Yes.
English has become very much a second language in Ukraine. So a lot of things are anglicized now as well.
So actually, as someone who speaks English but not much Ukrainian, if I just, let's say when the war finishes someday, I believe it will happen soon. When the war finishes and me as a tourist who wants to travel to Ukraine, how hard it is for me.
You will have no problem at all. They'll nearly all speak English because they're all taught English as a second language at school.
At school,
Yes.
like basically every young person, they will.
Everyone's like my age, younger.
Anyone from 35 or even 40 downwards would have some knowledge of English if they're living in the cities. Possibly not from a small little village, but if they're living in the cities and working, work in technology and those things, they use a lot of English.
And Ukraine is, at the moment, it's very much a very European country. It's the same as,
I mean, it's in Europe. It's Eastern Europe.
And they are. It is a young, very modern country. It is very, progressive. You go to a normal, normal kind of store. It's very westernized. You walk in, you're hearing the normal popular music of today.
Watch Hollywood
American
movie in
dance.
American
Exactly.
dance.
It is a very normal European experience. So it's the same as anyone who goes to Croatia or anywhere in those eastern regions. You know, they're very touristy. Ukraine's just not. But
You might not speak Ukrainian, you'd know a few words. If you said please and thank you in Ukrainian.
Дуже дякую. Привіт.
That's it.
Як справи?
That's
Like,
right.
If you did that, they would love you because
That's right.
look at you, you're from an Asian background, you're speaking a bit of Ukrainian too. Aren't you lovely? And they'll be your best friend and they'll speak to you in English because that's the common language between the two of you.
Oh, okay. And they will have no trouble talking to me in English.
No,
I don't think
the
they would
vast
know.
majority of people. Look, like anybody who's speaking their second language, they might say, "Oh, I speak a little bit, or I'm not very confident in it." But you'll
But
be
when
able,
they're actually talking English, they can say a lot.
you'll be able to.
But you certainly would be able to get
Absolutely.
buy what you want to buy, eat what you want to eat. Yes, you
Yes,
would.
it's a very progressive.
When it's all over, you must go.
Yes.
I
You
see.
must go to Ukraine for a visit.
Yeah, when's the war? And I mean, speaking of that, as someone, I know you're not like actually recently come here from Ukraine, but you do have a Ukrainian background, and you have been regularly keeping in touch with Ukrainian refugees, I assume.
Yes.
So, like, as a Ukrainian person, do you reckon when the war will be over?
Who knows?
Like, really, the question is, everyone is asking when. We've been waiting for more than 100 days, and the war is still going on.
But who knows? They don't know themselves, do they? So it's very difficult to put any sort of. You can't fathom it. It's very difficult.
It's hard to even comprehend that it's happening in the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean,
It's still, for us, for Ukrainians everywhere, but for everyone, it's united the world because no one could ever even contemplate that in 2022, that kind of.
yeah, no, it's like a second of the First World War. It's like it's a war. It's like something we learned from history book. It's something
all I
old.
can say is thank goodness my father and my father-in-law and mother-in-law are not alive to see it because they would be devastated. My mum, like I said, she's 99 now. She has not dementia, but she can be a bit forgetful. And I've told her that the war, and she said it's happening again. And what's going to become of it. And she watched a bit of the bombing and things like that at the beginning on TV, and was quite moved by it. And we didn't want to show it too much because we didn't want it to bring back too many memories. She still has a scar in her head from some shrapnel in her head from World War II. That she so you don't want to bring out too much memories like that. Yeah.
But when it will end, nobody will know. We can only pray and hope that it will be soon.
I see. Yeah, but it will happen. We don't know when, but it's something almost guaranteed. We need peace. Humans need peace.
But if there's one silver lining, and I do try to think positively, if there's a silver lining, it's the fact that the wider community all around the world is now finally seeing the rich culture of Ukraine. We have always had this.
That's exactly why I'm here. I want to show what Ukrainian culture is really like and what Ukrainian people really think about their culture and the war and how you people preserve your culture. And that's the whole point of me being here. But
And so that's the thing. If there's a silver lining to this horrible war, it's that the world is finally seeing who Ukraine is and what Ukraine has to offer.
yep. And guys, see, at least if you love these eggs, it's time to stop the war.
Yes.
Stop the war.
Stop the war right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.